All right, we are continuing with assignment 1. And the full details for assignment 1 can be found under unit 4. This is our compositing project. I already went through that in the introduction. You can always see it on your course outline. So now I'm going to shortcut to it by clicking on assignments and then scrolling down to assignment 1. Now, if I click here, it will take me to the past examples. But if I just click here, it will take me right to where we post this assignment, which is where the final assignment directions are. And then often on this page under assignments, you'll see I'll give extra information if you're curious. So we're dealing with concept art here, but artists use compositing in lots of different ways. So we have 2 different digital artists that use compositing for their professional work. We have Eric Johansson, some examples of his surrealistic photo composites, which he composites out of mostly his own photos to create his finished works. And then we have some very different by Josh Dycraft, who uses compositing to make these really, really elaborate kind of imagined scenes. Now the difference is Josh doesn't take his own photographs, right? He's mostly sourcing them just like we are from public sources, but uses sometimes thousands of different sources to make the image. And then sometimes he'll do a mix. So these are all from publicly sourced images of the Andes and of like Arctic mountains to make his elephant. But then this is a mix of, found sources of leaves and bark and organic textures, and then some that he photographed himself. This is all made from surgical gloves to talk about plastic pollutions in the ocean, on and on. So here's an example. Here he is photographing some of his own reference to make this owl. And then this is also used in his commercial work. So this was a commission he did for Volkswagen for a German publication, kind of a Game of Thrones style, all composited out of parts of a Volkswagen car. So compositing can be used in lots and lots of ways towards different finishes. We're using it towards concept art for setting. So we're trying to give an immediate sense of what a fantasy world would look like. This might be for a sci-fi movie, for a fantasy movie, for a cartoon series. And so your inspiration can be whatever you want as long as it's something that's from your own vision and not just copying something that already exists. So I find it helpful to have inspiration, and I can draw a lot of inspiration from animation backgrounds, even if this is going to be a photorealistic, very believable landscape we're creating. And this is an animated film. Maybe you've seen it. I think it's on Netflix. It's called Klaus. But this kind of shows how concept art works in animation. And this is 3D animation, so it is pretty believable. And how it goes from just shape-based to very atmospheric. So this is going to build a setting, right? So this is the far background of this scene, which is ice tunnels. Then you have the near background. Then you have the middle ground. They're all just layered up and then lit and shaded. The near middle ground, the foreground, and the near foreground, or sometimes called the extreme foreground. So just looking at this image, you wouldn't think that all of that is layered and involved, but it needs to be thought about in that way with at least those 3 types of depth: foreground, middle ground, and background. Because when you animate something within it, they need to occupy that space in different ways. The lighting's going to change, their size is going to change. And in this scene, they're like sledding through this tunnel. So if you're curious about that, this little video
to make the backgrounds pop
shows
and
it in
appear
action.
3D like the characters, the animators use several different techniques, such as multiplanes, where you have layers on top of layers to give the illusion of depth.
Right. And you can see more of the context of that video if you're interested. So this goes beyond just shading. It's really how you're placing your elements in space. So that's what we're going to try to do with our sketches, really understand foreground, middle ground, and background. All right. So I started it just by putting my theme, right? And you don't need to write your theme, but you are going to be required to post your sketch. So you'll always know what the bare requirements are for the assignment by seeing the past student example that's in the assignment. So for this, we turn in two things. We turn in our planning sketch and we turn in the finished composite. And the finished composite needs to be large enough to be print quality, so at least 8 by 10 inches, at least 300 pixels per inch. Which means our source files that we composite with need to be large as well. So I want a Popeye-inspired fantasy landscape of a dock with broken ships, shipwrecks, colorful. And think of this as your inspiration as well. So in my master folder, I also created an inspiration folder. And I found some images that will help kind of guide my vision. So there's this one that I started with. There's this one from the old animation and how they did the watercolor backgrounds, which are really beautiful, because I love those colors and textures. There's this one, which is setting concept art by Sony Animation for a movie that I imagine must be in production, right? Or maybe was abandoned. Yeah. Okay. So that was in development and then not finished, right? But this beautiful concept art. And then some of the settings, put into the key art for the color scripting. All right. Yeah, it's actually interesting. So Ricky brings up a good point. Thank you for that knowledge. If you go to the homepage of our course, there is a lot of work for digital artists that never sees the light of day. They get paid for it. It's a good career. But especially when it comes to kind of movies and video games and projects like that, let's see, where do I have it? I have it under links. There is a publication, and I'll put like just kind of fun things down here. Let's see. Where did I put it? Because you reminded me of it. It's a publication of just artworks, digital artworks and concept work that never got fully funded and used. So it's like an art of book for the things that, here we go. So it's down at the bottom of the homepage. And this is free. This is a downloadable PDF. It's big. I want to show it to you, so I'm going to download it. But it has like setting designs, character designs, storyboards, like all the kinds of things that a digital artist would have in their portfolio. But it's all from projects that have never been actually finished. So no official art books have been released. Yeah.
So for your background?
Yeah.
Right? You said you don't want things that can move. What about like clouds?
Yes. So for setting design, things that move very slowly, like planets, clouds, suns, moons, mist, flowers that sway gently in the breeze, all of those are fine for setting. It's anything that would move at the speed of something living, right? Like flickering flames. Those can be problematic. Birds flying in the sky, right? You want to leave those out for now. Okay. So that it's like a backdrop. This one is only somewhat problematic because those waterfalls, we would expect them to be moving, but they're far enough in the distance that it doesn't bug us too much, right? So all the student had to do to animate on top of this was to add kind of cloudy mist at the base of those waterfalls. And even though the water itself isn't moving, it made it seem like they were active. Sin, it looks like you have a question. So fog is atmosphere. It's like the thickness of the air. And we're going to be adding in things like that. That's fine. Mist, because that's not always moving. If it is moving, it's moving like clouds and kind of slowly. You could make a scene where the fog is really a character and it moves aggressively, but this is just to create the setting where we add characters into it. All right, yeah, good questions. You can definitely have atmosphere and fog. In fact, this would be improved by having more of that. It would help kind of soften some of these transitions. So if this is my idea, this is my sketch, but the sketch didn't come out of just nowhere. I went to Pixabay, which is linked in the assignment directions. Just pixabay.com, just like we did before. Oh no, we haven't really done this much before, but I showed it to you last class. And I looked for things like shipwreck. Now, to do digital image mining, I don't want these kind of illustrations. I want these kind of photographic ones, right? So I can go up to the settings here, and I want only photos. And I wish they had something that said no AI. But what is nice, they don't have that filter yet. And they might eventually. Oh, yes, excellent. This is something, because I read about them doing it. So if I want to not see any AI generated images, I can go to content type and I can say authentic only. Now you are allowed to use AI generated reference for this, as long as you know fully its limitations. So what's the difference? Well, authentic will look like this. It will have like kind of certifications. The AI generated ones are still high quality. There's only one of them, but they'll show a little robot in the corner. And the problem with them is they can look great, but when you really zoom in on them, their pixels will look different than authentic photographic pixels. So, that was strange. I'm just going to go ahead and log in. It's free to log in. And I've never had to do a CAPTCHA before. This is the problem with free resources. Good, okay. And now that I'm logged in, I have a few benefits. If you donate 10 images or more, and I have, then you never get any of the banner ads. But shipwreck. Only photos, and I want only authentic. Just because the pixels have a different quality. They're kind of softer and there's no digital noise to them when they're AI generated. So I found a lot of these before. And what I'm doing is I'm right-clicking and I'm opening them in new tabs. And I'm thinking these are going to be the bulk of my composition, because there's a lot of good reference of these shipwrecks. Because it seems like people like to take photos of abandoned ships. Now, these are not functioning ships, things we would expect to be moving. These are things that are going to be part of the setting in the foreground, middle ground, and background. And some of them have really cool skies behind them. I really didn't expect to find quite so many. Now these waves, the waves are not going to work well, right? Because we'd expect those to be moving. So I'm going to make it with calm water. Even though waves look really cool. So you need at least 5 references. But you can download a lot more than that. And I love this as something maybe for the extreme foreground. And there are 5 pages worth just of shipwreck. So once you've downloaded a few of those, this is what you do. You're going to go to them and you're going to download them at their largest size. And then you can close it. They're going to go to your downloads folder. And these are actually large enough to do very, very large prints. You know, some of these are 5,000 pixels. But I need them to be a minimum of larger than 1,000 pixels in both dimensions. So that we can at least print 8 by 10 at print resolution. This one's 7,000 pixels. Now, the problem with a lot of pixels is that it takes a lot of memory, and that's why we're using these machines and